Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So we had some big news yesterday, of course, with the interview that I covered in my last video. So definitely check that out for some Avatar Studios news. But this one's going to be all about some merchandise news. So it stems off other recent news, but just really quickly this one. Boston America Corps on Twitter just mentioned that they have this Legend of Korra collectible tin that has some sweets of some sort in it. I'm guessing if you're going to be getting this, you're going to be getting this for the cool tin with the... I don't think I've ever seen this piece of Korra art before, so a potentially new piece of Korra art. So, interesting, especially if it's not like super expensive or anything like that, and it's coming to for your entertainment. So if you have any of those nearby, you can get this Korra item if you want it. Not the Korra merchandise we want, but it's something. Now we get into this. So McFarlane have finally put up their new wave, I guess, for pre-order. This is the first time in a while they've actually put up one, because obviously the early this year wave was very light. It was basically small scale Iroh and Toph, and then they put out an Avatar State Aang at both the large and small scale. There really has not been a lot of information on McFarlane figures recently until we got the news about the Aang and the Sokka, but now we see what the full upcoming lineup is, at least for the next batch is. So you can see here 5 products here, and not super outstanding is what I'd have to say about it. So let's get into these separately. So we'll start with this. This is the Aang versus Zuko 2-pack at the smaller scale. So that's the big thing here. So you can see it's Avatar State Aang and Blue Spirit Zuko. So Avatar State Aang seems fine, comes with the staff. Blue Spirit Zuko is obviously the first time seeing this mold from McFarlane. Comes with the 2 swords, sword holder, seems pretty nice. Especially because like I skipped Avatar State Aang at this line. This seems like, okay, fine, if I want the Avatar State Aang and the Blue Spirit, just get this 2-pack, fair enough. This seems like this wave's version of what was it, the normal Aang with glider, basically 2-pack that they put out before. At least this time it's 2 figures. So you can see the box art on the back is actually pretty nice. Again, new art for like say Blue Spirit Zuko. Very nice to see. So that's pretty cool, but nothing too fascinating there. The Blue Spirit is like, sure, go ahead, do it as an action figure, but it doesn't particularly blow me away, is the main thing that I'd say there. Is that the exact same as this one? Let's see, mouth closed, and then this one is also mouth closed, but it does seem different to this one. So this one seems to have a slightly different kind of paint finish on it, so it does look like it's at least kind of painted slightly differently. In that it's more of just the straight kind of white, not kind of bordered or anything like that. Face seems slightly different, so at least they're doing something, but you know, it's not super interesting. The Blue Spirit, the main thing is just the mask, and it seems quite nicely done, and the painting on, like, say, the swords, it does look pretty good. The 7-inch scale new Aang. It's the same mold, except it seems like it has like slightly different hands, and then the face of course is different. This one is much more in line with what I would want from an Aang, but I still don't think it's like that impressive overall. I'm not the biggest fan of this expression. I just think it's a little bit kind of, you know, weird, the smile that he has, rather than just going for a normal one. Again, another what seems to be new piece of Aang art on the back of the box. It does come with Momo and a stand, but that's all. Again, that sense of it's a redo. Is there any reason you can't put the staff from the other one in with this one or anything like that? Or you know, that's the problem with McFarlane. They are probably overall the best figures we've had so far, but the weakness of them is that very minimal accessories, and a lot of the times they're getting the faces wrong. And as we'll see here, the release cadence and selection is not very good, because the thing here is, like, I have the original kind of Wave 1 Aang. The face is not very good. And if I'd known that they were going to do this in wave 2, I probably would have waited, not got this, and just got this one instead. Now, I would have been missing out on the staff or whatever, the accessories you get with this one, but I think it looks much better. Otherwise, like, it is the same. Like, you can see the mold for the shawl bit here is exactly the same. And the only difference is that obviously the Aang there has more just standard hands, whereas there's one splayed out hand here and one sort of holding hand here on this one. So bit of a weird kind of choice here to do this again. This was the most baffling one of all. They're doing another Zuko as well. I thought it was just like, oh, they're doing another Aang. That sort of makes sense. But they're also doing another Zuko. And the main thing is kind of like, hey, here's the Zuko we probably should have put out in wave 1 instead of the really bad looking face on the first one. Much better. That's exactly the book 1 Zuko face that you want. It actually looks really, really good. In that I dislike the original face so much, I actually got the gold label version, that's Zuko with the helmet, which I thought had a better face to match that. And it's a nice figure again. So, like, if you have held off, like, seems to be the ideal book 1 Zuko. But I think it comes with, like, the same accessories that, like, yeah, this Zuko definitely had this one that you can put over the fist, the fire daggers. He does come with different hands, which is kind of nice. But it is, again, it's just a redo again. It's the same figures we've had before. That, like, wave 1 is Aang and Zuko. Wave 2 is Aang and Zuko and Sokka. Like, what are they doing? I really, really do not understand this. Where is the variety of characters? So let's get into Sokka. So there's been a lot of controversy about this figure. And I think these pictures make the figure look a lot better. The main problem has been the skin tone and how light it looks in certain pictures. I really do feel, looking at these pictures, that they happen to choose the pictures where the lighting makes it look terrible with how light it is. You can see as you go through the pictures here that the skin tone is nowhere near as bad as it seemed in the first place. Like, look at this. You can see the light is hitting sort of like his sort of temple area of his head up here, and it looks very light. But you can clearly see it's the lighting effect in and around here. Just on to say it's like cheek here, where the light isn't just really, really shining on it. You can sort of see that, like, okay, it's much more in line with what you would expect from Sokka. And that's the thing, like, throughout a lot of these pictures, is that the ones where you see it at more of an angle and it doesn't quite catch the light, it doesn't look as bad. I still think it's probably a little bit off where it needs to be, but I don't think it is as bad as has been made out. I think for whatever reason, the lighting is just extraordinarily harsh, I think, on this figure, and it makes it look terrible. But otherwise, like, accessories are very nice. Like, it comes with the club, comes with, like, the machete, the boomerang holder, the boomerang itself. Though, is that the way it's going to end up looking? That's not great if that's the case. So it looks like they maybe haven't colored the boomerang fully, which isn't great. But otherwise, like I've said before, I think this looks like a really, really good Sokka. And the other thing I'll bring up here is just this figure. So this is also McFarlane Sokka. It's just a smaller scale. And when this came out, had its release and stuff like that, and no one made any fuss about sort of the skin tone. This is pretty much exactly what you would want in my mind. It does seem, though, like on this larger scale one, that they have, I think, gone for a slightly lighter shade. But again, I think this is a figure that will look better in person. I think just for whatever reason, the pictures are not doing this much justice. But just to highlight that McFarlane, like, have done this before. Their Katara is the same as this. It's just a weird kind of situation about what they did. Otherwise, like, look, articulation looks nice. The big thing on the McFarlane stuff is obviously the kind of detail. Like, look at the way his boots are. Like, the texture looks very nice. Similarly, they look like they have the sort of leathery texture there on the boomerang holder. And then otherwise, like, the colors for, like, his outfit and stuff like that do look pretty good. So This is one where I am probably going to pick this one up, if not just to have it in person and be able to figure out like what's going on and like is the skin tone like as bad as it looks. Just to I suppose highlight this a little bit, I did post this picture on Twitter, just sort of highlighting. I used like the Photoshop kind of color picker thing, just to highlight that like here's the original picture that they went for, and if you just like use the kind of color picker on it, like the light makes it look exceptionally light, and that's why I do think they chose the absolute worst image possible. Otherwise, here you can see it's a little bit better, but obviously it's still maybe a little bit off where it does need to be, but it's not, as egregious. Last one is definitely the most interesting one, and that is this: the Fire Nation Komodo rhino. So finally, we see that they are continuing the smaller scale line of animal figures. So they did the Appa before, which was really, really nice. A really nice piece of merchandise from last year. And I think a lot of us were wondering, like, okay, how are they going to follow this up? With Korra, it seems very obvious. When they do the Korra line, Naga is going to fit perfectly in this scale. That's going to be an amazing product, hopefully, when they eventually get around to it. So for Avatar, what were they going to do? I thought they'd go for the dragon next, or maybe the badger mole. But instead they've gone for Komodo rhino. They are sticking to very early book 1, and this is the other animal that I think makes the most sense alongside Appa. Even though it's never like massively featured, like to the point where you're like, oh yeah, the Komodo rhino, that's the big animal. But the interesting thing about this is that they did do a Komodo rhino in the original toy line. This is actually one of the few figures I actually have from the original toy line. But you can see that rather than going for a hyper accurate sort of figure like this, they went more for the gimmicks with this one of like, like the spring loaded kind of head. You've got the sort of ball launcher things here on the side. It's also there's a button to activate this, and then again, yeah, there's no basically no articulation. You can move the back legs, slightly, but that's really it. Similarly, this one, I don't think it has that much articulation. What do they say here? So yeah, 5-inch figures can sit on it. It features a moving head and bendable tail with wire inserts. So that's very interesting, actually, there to know. So if we look at this here, so the tail is going to be sort of flexible and movable, which I think is actually a really cool idea. Again, does look like they're going to roughly have the other limbs locked in place, but that was the case with the Appa. It was, again, the head could move a little bit, the mouth opened and closed. The tail was a little flexible because you had to attach it on. So it looks like they're doing a similar thing here. But otherwise, I like the detail on this. I really do. I think it looks pretty nice. Again, the texture on the sort of rhino type skin, I think you can't quite tell as well from this, but it looks really nicely detailed. Like the big thing with the Appa was how much sculpting there was to get across the Appa's fur. And here, this is where McFarlane's sculpting really, really shines, because you can see it has a pretty nice paint job here. Even with the little details here, you can see they've tried to do different sort of surface level sculpting on the different kind of parts. Like the horn is going to be different than the skin, and then the kind of saddle stuff is going to be different again. And that's where McFarlane really, really does shine. So this is, I think, just as a unique item, a must-have for me. Just to sort of support this idea of yes, I want more of these animal figures, at least, as we go forward. I want to see a dragon, a badger mole, and Naga, polar bear dog. Will they do anything beyond that? There's maybe the potential for a Shearshoe, just because it's a very unique looking animal, but that would probably require that they make a June figure, and I'm not sure they're quite willing to do that. The only thing I would say about this is that the Zuko figure is the only one that makes sense, sort of, canonically, to go on this animal. Otherwise, it's kind of why isn't there actually just a generic Fire Nation soldier figure that can go on this. That's the one missing thing of like, I would absolutely have paid a little bit more for this if it came with generic Fire Nation soldier. Just so you have something that is like hyper accurate to ride on it. Because I think the picture they showed on like Twitter of this was with Aang on the back, which is a fun thing, of course, like what you can do with the action figures, but it's obviously not something that really happens in the show. So yeah, I feel from this grouping, I'm gonna get the Komodo Rhino, the Sokka, and maybe this. I'm not sure how strongly I feel about this. I guess I'll have to wait and see the price when it goes up for pre-order from one of the places I usually order from. But unfortunately, I think I will be skipping the Aang and Zuko, because I have the Momo from like other lines that I think is roughly to scale with this. Like I think one of the Aangs I have from the Diamond Select line has a Momo. I'll stick to that one. Because I don't need this mold again. And even though this is sort of in a way like the perfect book 1 Zuko without the helmet, I don't think I'll go in on it again. I'm going to wait for their book 3 Zuko if they ever do one. But the problem remains. We're now kind of, 2 years into this line? Where is Katara? Like, even just a very, very basic suggestion here. Why of the initial main 4 characters, why is Katara being done last? And it really stands out that, like, obviously you have not done a female character in the larger scale line. Now, obviously you have done Katara in the smaller scale line. You've done Toph. You have shown that you're not unwilling to do female characters. But it's notable that there are now 1 million Aangs in this line. Like, really, like, loads. You have the Katara there. But look, everything is like Aang, Zuko, Aang. Like, Aang. There's, like, I think that's is that the same Aang? No, it's a different Aang. So, yeah. There's, like, 4 Aangs. Like, 2 Zukos in this lineup. And then, you go back here to the, if this would ever load. There we go. You go back here and it's like, okay, 2 more Aangs. 2 more Aangs. And then it's like, oh, Zuko, Blue Spirit Zuko, but still Zuko. And it's like, what's going on here? Why no variety? I think the biggest thing with this line is that there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 figures. There are 6 figures in the 7-inch line. And 3 of them are Aang, 2 of them are Zuko, and 1 of them is Sokka. And I get it, McFarlane, they need to get the use out of these molds to justify doing them, and Avatar, for the most part, doesn't really have that many opportunities for full-on mold reuse, because typically it's a full outfit change, which is a whole new figure. And that can be, I suppose, a little bit of a frustrating thing, in that the Zuko is probably the biggest example of like, oh yeah, with that figure, you want to get a remold out of it. The only thing you can change is the head, basically, and that's what they've done numerous times. Actually, there's 7, because there's also the sort of chase variant of Zuko that has the patch. It's meant to reference the episode where he's still like injured going around the air temples. So there's actually 3 Aangs, 3 Zukos, and a Sokka. So it's particularly like bad in that sense. I'll give them until like whatever their next announcement is on their next batch of figures or whatever it is, because you can see here they have like 2021 they only launched sort of right at the end of the year. They had like what felt like a just fill-in kind of bit here. This is the first time they've properly announced stuff. But the next grouping of whatever, so whatever the next 7-inch figure, whatever the next lineup of the smaller scale figures is, that's going to be really telling, because with the smaller scale figures, you've done a lot of the main cast. So the obvious ones to do next would be, say, I would guess Azula, Zhao, Ozai, and beyond them, you're probably talking about, say, Jet, Suki, Mei, Ty Lee. Whereas the 7-inch scale is so far behind that they need to do like the basic characters before anything else. They need to do Katara next. That just has to be what's next. If not, it's probably going to be Zhao, I guess. So I'm not sure what's going on here. They need to pick up the pace on this for sure, because they're still in book one, and we could be here for a while. I wish they would just come out and explain what their like philosophy is on where they're going, because they're probably going to do like Zhao, Iroh, and Katara, so it might be pretty scarce. Because I think everyone's waiting for like Suki, Mei, Ty Lee action figures, and it's going to be like, you'll get a lot of brownie points from the fandom if you're the first company to put those characters out. Funko have already done them, and that's why people are interested in the Funkos. But everywhere else is just so slow. So there are my thoughts on this. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on the new wave of McFarlane figures. And yeah, that's been it. Thanks for watching, and bye.